Quick look at Team Liquid. Maya plays a lot of Nomad, so yeah, maybe a little target towards Maya. Maya was actually the best player in the 8-7 matchup between Liquid and Furia during the regular season. Definitely a bit of a talisman performance from Maya on that one, so I can get it. Furia, you know, kind of once bitten, twice shy. Maya's done this to us before, so we'll take away Nomad. So it's not so much about the utility. The problem with that is that Maya alternatively likes to play quite a bit of Deimos. So at the minute they're on Capitao because they want that utility, but you might also see a little bit of a swing towards some Deimos rounds as well. And if I'm honest, Deimos I don't feel is an operator that you want to encourage anybody to be playing.
I mean,
not against you at least.
Yeah. I think it's that weird moment because sometimes you can be, and Deimos is great in the right hands, right? It's phenomenal. It's in the right hand described as the best operator in the game. And there's not many operators that sort of fill and fit that niche. But there are also sometimes teams that get a little bit too locked in towards that can play. And remember, it's an information highway that works both ways. So if you think that you can out communicate your opponents, and you can be in positions which, to be fair, Cafe does offer not as many as others. You think about like Border. As soon as the Deimos is revealed, unless they're very safe, they're probably going to get shot from somewhere because it's very quick to go. They're outside East Balcony. They're outside CC Swing. They're outside, like, there's that element of it, but I'm with you. I get it. Now, what will Clash get? And apart from maybe a little pocket of attention, they have the Fenrir mine immediately underneath the hatch itself, and outside of maybe a grenade of the 6 they've got, or potentially an angle from here if they want to try and shoot their way up. It seems like they're really sort of advertising here a cocktail side plant.
KZ just looking to get a little bit aggressive onto those windows now. At the halfway mark, I don't think there's any problem with the defenders looking to take on some fights, especially with that stat that you gave us beforehand about Furia's dominance on this map once they get that opening kill. So they're now keen at the minute 10 mark to make that happen. If we have a look on the side of Team Liquid, there's only 2 of them inside the map at the minute. It's going to be Diaz who manages to pick up that opening kill, takes down Felipox, but that's going to give Felipox the breathing space to at least IGL this team through the rest of the round. Nade manages to pick up resets in a trade. KZ on to Ask. 50 seconds left to go. 3v2 Furia. I think they start to dig in now.
Well, that's it. And certainly Nesk is the only one left alive, but you're toe-to-toe with a Clash at this point. That's a quick way for it to end there. I mean, yes, the electricity doesn't really do a lot of damage, if it's any, currently, or at all, but a gun sure does. There's the start. Furia get there first, and you could see that, you know, Liquid's maths wasn't horrible. The calculation was there is a Clash, there is all this barb, there is all this setup, there is the Fenrir. Let's not drop on towards top red in heaven. Let's instead try and pull ourselves back towards the other side. Oh no, we've started to lose the gunfights. That's sort of how it comes together. You can't always bank on that, but at the same time, I don't hate Liquid's rotation there. I don't think it was the wrong choice. It was just a tough choice, right?
I think it probably needed to be done. There was nothing going from where they were realistically. I think ultimately the problem for Liquid came down to through that entire, we didn't quite see 3 minutes, but through the entire round, what control did the game? Absolutely nothing. They got themselves into... They didn't even get in... I was going to say maybe Cigar, but they didn't. They got killed under New Hatch, and Clash was still in Cigar. They didn't get Piano. They didn't get White Stairs. They didn't get any control whatsoever. And that's a huge problem. That is a huge, huge problem, especially on a map like Cafe, top floor. You don't even need to take a lot of control, realistically. You need Piano, Washroom, Cigar and under New Hatch, and you can think about getting a plant down. A little bit of pressure from the windows in towards Cocktail, and you know it can be done. So yeah, big problems for Liquid. I think they're looking Herds to get aggressive here. We know what to expect, and well, I thought the challenge was going to come on to Herds, but Resets thinks no. This round has got far too long for Diaz. Takes Diaz down, and that's a fear. Could be a big loss, especially with a Clash on the board.
I'll be honest, What just happened? I was looking at my notes. I saw it was a team kill when you reacted, and I looked back over, but how? How was there a team kill?
Hertz ran out of reading door quite extensively,
okay.
ran out, and I think it was a response towards that that then saw them line up. KZ does manage to get Maya, but Liquid have 2 in response, so level things up at 3 versus 3, make it 3 versus 2. Nesk, he's waking up.
There is Nesk. He said it before, like he's not someone that you can always sort of, you know, trust on, bank on, and rely on, unfortunately, but when he is in his game, it's untouchable. It's unstoppable. 4 kills over this. And they try and push for even more. JV92 and Felipox have 1:20 to try and operate with. And obviously have the Echo drone so they can try and read some of the game ahead of them. But otherwise, at this point, it's just sort of steady control, steady bits of pockets. The hatch itself is electrified. They don't really have the means to get themselves round, so it's instead going to be what seems like a white stairs take. Just get the wall open with a pocket tin opener and get yourself tucked in for a breach, potentially. They've got the long angles. They've maybe got... JV92 should probably rotate round and get a bit of the crossfight. Here's that opening I talked about. They just want to get in just behind the bomb chassis. They're worried about a swing, but it's a late movement out of the position to this back line. There's a thin margin of Nesk. At this point, JV does get resets, though, on the swing. So 40 seconds of 2 versus 2. Ask starts to pop. The last bolt's forward. There's this cross angle that they're just setting up here. They're going to try and isolate this into 2 1 versus 1s behind the cover of the smoke, but it hasn't quite covered. The player who gets the drop, JV92, has the long watch. 1 more to find, and he finds it in Liquid. They started to pull themselves back, but that final sort of push was just so linear.
It comes down again to, I made a similar point in the Black Dragons game earlier, where Black Dragons went 5v3, they got 2 kills, and then it got brought back to 3v3, and on the face of it, and it was much the similar situation here. Liquid got a couple of kills, and on the face of it, you can look at that and think, right, Liquid are moving, they've got that top floor control, they've got a couple of kills, 3v3, this is doable. But in the 2v3, I'm sat there thinking, Furia win this. Furia win this because Liquid had lost the Ram and lost the Sophia, so the operators that they'd lost were much higher value, you know, than maybe what they'd taken. They still had, they didn't even need to, I don't know if they had Yokai drones left, but they had Felipox on the Echo. For argument's sake, there's the possibility then of Yokai drones in the mix as well to deny a plant, you know, beyond them just holding the long angles. And yeah, Liquid, you never choose who, you know, lives and dies. You choose who goes into maybe more dangerous areas and things like that. Fury maybe got a little bit lucky with the couple of kills they got, especially considering one of them was a team kill. I know they did deal with the clash quite well without the Sophia, but yeah, losing that vertical presence with Ram and with the explosive grenades of Sophia was a big loss for them overall, and it led into that one-dimensional push that you've quite rightly mentioned there, to, you know, just breach the wall and try to push in and plant behind the diffuser. It made it very easy for Furia to defend.
So now with Furia getting those 2 rounds in a row and Liquid sort of being battling, but not quite thrown out entirely. They're going to decide to keep the sort of continuation of pressure here. We've got the clash once again. We've seen how Nate's been able to utilize that operator to just cause some slow. I have a feeling that is going to be that next ban coming out from Liquid to go alongside the other 2. At this point, that early engagement, that opening bit of pressure that we talked about being such a success. Twice it's been taken by Liquid. Make that 3 times. Yes, technically it was against one of their players once. It seems like something that Furia are just happy to trade back into here, Tim.
Yeah, you know, as we've said at length, 7-win map streak on Cafe. Furia are always going to be good here. You know, Liquid maybe do need to look a little bit towards Bank, but, you know, don't be fooled into thinking that Liquid have got this amazing record on Bank, because they don't necessarily. It's very similar preference for them to Furia, so they need to make as much out of Cafe as they can, because they're not going to have it easy, you know, to get through that second map and get themselves onto Chalet. Good couple of kills come in, coming. But look at what they've lost again. I'm going to talk about the value of those operators. Where Furia still have Smoke and Clash, two of their big denial operators left on side. On the other side, Liquid have lost Ram and lost Monty, two of their focal points for this attack. They still have the sledge, that's good, but otherwise they've got nothing as a tip of the spear to try and execute and get a plant down.
On 40 seconds and it's just swinging back in. JV92. Yeah, I mean, absolutely phenomenal so far. Doesn't need the kill onto that one. It is just Maya left at this point. Unfortunately, another victim falls. And I think they're 007 within 3 rounds, but the good version here.
Furia are just a different beast on one. You know, we've said this coming in. Yep, they might have been a little bit up and down through the stage, couple of overtime matches that maybe should have been won in regulation, these sorts of things, but ultimately, this is a team of diamonds, and by that I mean, you know, they are created under pressure, thrive under pressure. We see it time and time again from Furia. The bigger the occasion, the bigger the performance, and they're playing really, really well today. You know, I feel for Liquid. Like I said, you can't always choose who's going to get picked up in a gunfight, and Furia have maybe, I don't want to say they've got lucky because they played well, but they've got lucky a couple of times with the operator. You know, they get a couple of kills, they've got the Ram and the Monty. Straight away you're looking at that for a kitchen take and you're thinking, dear oh dear. You know, where did half of those Liquid players die? Coming into bakery. What would your Monty normally do? Walk into bakery and push into prep. That's the operator that's going to be clearing that area that you've just lost, and then you're being punished heavily because of it. So yeah, big problems to Liquid, and it's not even necessarily something that they can control, because you can't just start wrapping these operators in cotton wool. Somebody's got to go in and take the gunfights. And you know, that is happening. Players like Nest on the Twitch, he is going in and looking for those gunfights. They're just being picked up elsewhere. You know, Siege is not a 15-a-side game. There's only 5 of you on each team, and so there's a lot of work to be done in 3 minutes. So you've got to get in, you've got to get active, you've got to be a part of it. And Team Liquid right now are just being a little bit unfortunate, I think, in terms of who is dropping off the board at what points in the round. You know, watch this one, and see how long Diaz lives, because the sense is going to be really important when it comes to the plant. If you've got a sense on side, then your plant strategy is focused around that sense and creating a little bit of space. The Monty as well, and Maya on the Capitao. Those are the 3 real functional operators in this that they want to use to create space and to create safety to put a plant down. Watch how long they survive into the round, and then watch the outcome of the round and see how successful Liquid are, either with or without them, depending on how it plays out.
Furia have now pulled the 3 rounds out. As I said, the clash was removed, but bigger problems to have to sort out. Like, how do you stop a problem like JV92? Getting their start. Pressure on towards top red and heaven. Just gonna instead focus the take, I think, a little bit more directly on towards this side. As I said before, last time they spread themselves out, put pressure onto the cocktail windows, put pressure onto the back end of the site, and sort of just got picked apart either side. And then when it came down to the push up here, they didn't really have a lot left. Instead, very central push. All of them wrapped around this position. You don't have either the Nomad or the Gridlock. That's going to make things very dangerous of a pressure around the back, but well, there's Felipox finding Maya. I'm wondering if that was part of that potential problem. And now Herds is just going to actually drift away. He doesn't want to give them the free reverse engagement here.
Remember what I said, Maya is gone. That's the Capitao lost. They still have 2 Oh, I'm really trying to help Liquid here. I'm really trying to find the point, but they lose Maya. They still have Sense, they still have the Monty, but they then lose the 2 support operators. So now Monty's become a lot less powerful because in a 2vx, Monty has to be much more careful and can't just work with Diaz. If you had the other operators available, then you've got a gun that you can stick with Monty and you use them kind of like a mobile mirror window, as we see, and Monty can be a real threat. Whereas now, much less so, because Monty's going to be much easier to isolate because these two can't just play together. Felipox comes on a flank, picks up both Ask and Diaz. Great round from Furia again, and they picked up that important operator. The Capitao taken out. Yes, there were kills that went the other way, but ultimately, Furia just have all the answers right now.
It's just a bit brutal, isn't it, right now, really? I guess it's always that thing when we said it before, the worry is you get this team onto land, you get them onto their preferred terrain, and they just find that extra gear, they find that extra level. Now, here, on that pressure, when you are in this risky situation, where else do you sort of go from here? It's very tough. Obviously, Maya and Resets unable to really get themselves in. Ask not much better. At the same time, Herds hasn't done the same, but when you've got players on your team stepping up, Fleetbox 5-2, keep finding those like trade back-ins or those roam takes or those flank kills, very important parts of it. And then in the same sort of breath, I already mentioned him before, but 8-0-0. Probably could find ourselves mentioning him a few times throughout this ace.
Yeah, it could be a quick old day here between NIP and Furia. We'll see. I mean, look, as Des loves to say, there's two halves to a game of Siege. We know that they attack a cafe. We've spoken about it at length today. They know no idea about JV here. He takes spot shots through the door. They actually get away with one there. That's the bit of luck that Liquid are probably going to need. But yeah, maybe, look, we've spoken about cafe and the attack can be difficult. Maybe Liquid get onto the defense and things change. At the minute, I'll be honest, it doesn't feel likely. I'm kind of clutching at straws, trying to find something that might just give a bit of hope to Liquid. But right now, it feels, as I said coming in, Furia have a habit when the game means more, they find another gear. And they are definitely operating on a different level so far.
Their drives Asks, trying to find the immediate fight, but Maya has the cover. And Felipox, as I said before, keeps finding the fight back. Herds gets Maya. Herds gets a second. That is that push gone. Everything else falls around it. They take one step forward and then just seemingly 10 steps back. And it's been a big fight back here from Diaz. There's Felipox and KZ. They've killed the impossible to kill man. Can they get close towards the site? Can they try and isolate? Two clean engagements here. Felipox and KZ do not have to give them anything. They're tucked so close together, ready to do what they need to be doing to him, which is just to play this on contact.
Well, exactly. That's the problem that Diaz has got here. He's coming up against two of the best in the game, Felipox and KZ. They're going to give him absolutely nothing here. They're going to give him no opportunity to fight into this. I think we see a bulletproof camera just on the right there, feeding the intel, Yep, there it is. His location is known. I was going to say, please take it out. Yes. It's a difficult situation, but you're not making it any easier for yourself. But yeah, Felipox, KZ, I can't see them making a mistake. Diaz might have made a mistake. I don't know how the bulletproof camera wasn't taken out, but it wasn't. But ultimately, yeah, the peak comes through. Furia play it perfectly. 2v1, lock it down, and they were never going to give... It was a good effort by Diaz. So let's, be fair. He gets 2 kills on the rappelling through dining window. Not an easy thing to do. Got himself really back into the fight there. But again, I think, Liquid, nothing's really worked for them for the first 4 rounds. So it's kind of like, right, those bans have come in. We've been left with the shields. Let's throw blitz in their face. Okay, without top floor control on reading, that's going to be difficult because the reality is that Furia, as they were, are going to be playing upstairs. So yeah, your blitz might go in and make a nuisance of themselves inside a site, but you can't cover yourself from above as a blitz, and you're just going to get taken out, and they do, and the attack crumbles for Liquid in a matter of seconds. Furia just, yeah, operating on a different level, I think, is the phrase at the minute.
So, Ace of Pyrite, Tim, my good pal, my good buddy. We started today with a 7-0. What do you think? Do you think we're going to be there again in a minute?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I'm gonna say I think Liquid are good for at least a couple of rounds on defense. Whether they get one here on the attack or not, we've got Raura. Now Raura has got a really low round win rate at pro play at the minute. Not quite been integrated, you know, wildly successfully. I don't think so far. I think there's a lot of potential for Raura, but yeah, I don't think teams have quite got the grasp of maybe getting the most out of that operator at the minute. It's something Liquid are going to try now. Hopefully they can get themselves around before the half. I'm not sure it's going to come here, but on the defence, I do expect them to pick something up. They're trying to push into Bakery now. They have got themselves some territory taken, so I was going to say not a bad start, but Nid does manage to find Nest. Casey onto resets, 1 for 1 as we go 3 versus 3.
3 versus 3, they're in the best chance here to be able to drive it forward because they also still have the Blackbeard. It's one of those times where they've sort of bought important operators, but there's so many that losing the Glaz isn't the end of the world, but oh, that makes it dangerous. Diaz does get one. There's Arse getting the cover. It is all JV92 gets the down onto Diaz, a 1 versus 1 with a Blackbeard, and he still wins it out. JV90 bloody 2 to secure another just cavalcade of kills.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what Liquid are doing there in that 2v1. Hindsight's a wonderful thing, and I know this, and I say it often to try and soften the blow of me being critical, but I don't know what you're doing in a 2v1 there. You've got a Blackbeard, and yet you are stood at wedding window with your other player exposed enough that you can be killed and give the 1v1 with, you know, you've got plenty of time. Let the Blackbeard have a look. Let him have a look. Let's see where JV92 is. What's going on? Is he pushing? Is he not? Get the Blackbeard in his face. Play off that contact. Play together as a pair. Liquid did not play together as a pair. Whether they were maybe unaware that there was an angle onto them out of the window or not, I don't know. But when you lose that body outside that window, when that down comes in, I'm not saying it's round over. A 1v1, Blackbeard still has a pretty decent advantage, and taking nothing away from JV92, he's hit a beautiful shot to take out that Blackbeard in the manner that he has, but it should not have been that easy for JV to get into a 1v1 there.
6-0. Tim, Ace of Pyrite, good buddy, good pal. We saw it. I mean, he's 10-1. You know, he's playing so good, his stats are binary.
He's sending a message. He's sending a message.
Put 1011 into a binary translator. Tell me what is that? It comes to GOAT. Let's be real. It's exceptional performance here. And it's not over. It can be a game of two halves. Now's the pressure of it to try and come back against them.
Do you want to know the worst thing, Ed?
Yeah.
Team Liquid have had the entry kill in 4 rounds out of 6.
So it's only going to make the stat better for Furia after this. Did they... Wait, actually... Yeah, well, I was going to say, did they win the one? Yeah, of course they did. They won every single round. I was going to be like, oh, double check. But... yeah. Let's see if they can try and pull this one back. And... God, it's almost... the sort of comments and statements I made of, you know, the first game. Black Dragons unfortunately weren't there in the first map. They started to bite back in the second map, but it was a bit too late to sort of get over the deficit because every blow felt like 2. Is it going to be a similar thing here? Great pressure on towards the pixel position, and Herds still wins it out. Took a lot of damage though from Nesk. It was a very narrow margin. And there is that aspect here, is obviously this is, you know, we've had a lot of trade outs across all the regions on online play. In LAN, that might not be the case as much here, Tim. That could have been in online a trade.
Yeah, I really backed Liquid for getting around here on the defence, but losing that opener is certainly not going to help them. A bit of extra HP with those dot boosts as well. JV picks up resets. Honestly, it's been men against boys on Cafe is the reality so far. You know, I don't want to insult Liquid, but they just haven't operated on the same level this time around. And we know that they can. You know, there's not even a question about ability or anything else. They just haven't operated on the same level as Furia. Philippox manages to find himself on the wrong end of that one. Gets taken down. KZ onto Diaz. It does stop the plant for the time being, but they come back to it. Don't have time as KZ picks up the last. It's going to be 7-0, M. It's over in one. I'm going to have to come back on Banker Liquid.
That we sort of discussed about last time, about a team starting on their defense after going through that, because they could theoretically, and I'm not saying this is going to happen, they could theoretically play what is 14 rounds of Siege today, and 12 of them are on defense.
I've just gone back even... Sorry, I've just gone back even further for Liquid to find the last time they won this map, and it was against Black Dragons in September last year, 314 days ago.
So that's quite a while.
It's a little while, isn't it?
Listen, my expert analysis says that's quite a while. I mean, it's the thing about teams of this sort of stature is there's so many terrifying statistics out there.
Yeah.
I assume JV92 was, I'm going to say a peak from top square is going to be my guess for that. Looking out the window towards the spawn and maybe got taken, yeah, from... Oh, actually, no, the windows look kind of solid. I don't know, I was trying to think where you could get that quick. The only other place would be open, really. Either way, JV92's dead. Think about what he did last map.
Yeah, great start for Team Liquid. Maya coming in and getting one. Diaz with another onto Herds. This is exactly what they needed, to be honest. Come in, get a big entry, double down on it. 5 versus 3. What... They just need to win this round now, which is probably, you know, more simple than it sounds. They just now start thinking about how do we... Don't rush things. You got 2 minutes left. Keep working the site. Keep creating that space. You're going to have a lot more of it now that you've got those 2 kills. You got the smoke off the board as well. That's absolutely huge. It leaves us with nade, and we've seen how wobbly the cover from a Tachanka can be for those plant spots sometimes down in server. So it's going to be a big ask. They're taking fights all over the map here, Furia. They can't be doing that. KZ's going to be punished. Yeah, Furia know how this round's going to go, so they might as well run at them and try and get some kills. Liquid cutting them down nicely, and they're going to go 1-0, almost certainly.
Well, there's at least Ask dead. At this point, they're planting on the other site itself. They're not being gifted an engagement. They have the cross as well, so even if he wins this, which he won't, but even if he had, he would still have a post plant and 3 people to try and cut his way through. Strong start here from Team Liquid. Everything they needed to do and needed it to be.
I don't want to take the round away from Team Liquid, and I can't because I'm not allowed. It's 1-0 Liquid. But I don't.
You've tried before.
Believe me, but yeah, I don't want to take it away from them. They've done well. I always say you can only play what's in front of you. You can only take the gunfights that are in front of you. You can only deal with what is there in the server, and Liquid have done that, and they've won it. I don't feel like Furia played that round quote unquote properly, if I'm honest. I feel like coming off the back of a 7-0, they've come in there and they've just run at Liquid in a lot of ways. JV92's got aggressive and either had a peek or been there waiting at a doorway for somebody to walk in and lost his life. And then I'm not being funny, but how often are we going to see a defender stood in open area as a Kaid just trying to fight them as they come in through printer window? there's no way out of there. You're dead. You can't go through to electrical and go down blue stairs because there's somebody in electrical. You can't get through to the hatch because the player on printer window. You're dead. Like, Furia put themselves in some very funny positions there, and when there was only 2 left, we had the Tachanka strafing across the bottom of main stairs, just trying to take they were just throwing it. They were just running at Liquid, and I think they'd kind of, you know, it felt like the defensive equivalent of a rush, you know, where the attackers just feel like they're really on top. So yeah, we're just going to flood into site and go crazy. It didn't really feel like Furia played that one properly as such, and I think we're probably going to see some different defences to that coming out from Furia. So it might not be, you know, Team Liquid fans, I know you want to be excited and get excited, but it might not all be as plain sailing as that. I would just have that word of caution.
So they haven't given them either of the 2 engagements that were sort of gifted onto Liquid in the previous one. This time Furia pulled themselves and peeled themselves further back towards it, and some steady destruction happens within the construction of the site itself. Here's the Deimos on the drive on a track on... Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if Herds is tracked and there's somebody underneath him. He'll just kill him.
Track away, track all you want if that is going to be the response. There's a clash on the side here as well, and I'm just looking at what, you know, possible responses they've got to that at the minute, and it's not too much. They've got 3 nades left in pocket, so the nades are going to be really critical when it comes to dealing with that. Oh, Herds. That is absolutely disgusting. Just on his way back into the mirror. He'll do it again. Don't tempt him. He'll do it again.
I mean, that's it, right? And now so they've got the clash with the pressure and the control over on top square, just pinging and reading all of this out to the approach. I assume there's some protection on towards stock as well, which is why Nade is so comfortable playing this deep. And then they just have the aggressive mirror window. So you're going to, you know, toe-to-toe there with the clash, try and force them forward. But there's the cover of stock I talked about. They're in. They're not quite knocked out, but it doesn't matter. KZ! As Herds got himself the 3rd. KZ was just like, oh, the grenades mean I have to go forward. I will go forward.
Well, I think Liquid will be wishing that he hadn't gone forward. The Scorpion singing, stinging, and getting a double kill on stock windows. But yeah, look, there's a big difference between what Furia did there in round 2 and what they did in round 1. And that was, you know, as I suggested, round 1, much more aggressive, more of a sort of a defensive rush almost. You know, didn't play in a lot of positions or a lot of ways that we would expect from a basement defensive hold. That was much more textbook, wasn't it, from Furia? They had the mirror window inside of Janitor. They had the clash protecting the player inside of Janitor. They had everything that you would expect from a top floor defense there, and it really paid dividends for them. It looked so much easier than round 1 for Furia. So Liquid now know that they're in a bit of a game, and we will continue our rotation. Furia will move us down to open area for round 3, but Liquid, those are the rounds that they need to start finding a way to win.
One apiece. But they need to make sure, obviously, that they can keep the sort of pressure up there. Banshee trap on the rotate closer and closer in towards, you know, the extension on archives. It's always one of those positions to play where, yeah, you've got this vertical hold. You've got 2 options of doing it. You can sort of get castles in, get yourself sort of solid on the archives, let them try and play against an electrocuted quad wall and expect that, or you do this. Mirror windows, roaming echo drones, Fenrir and Melusi to catch out information, and you just play the map hot. Furia. They want to make sure that every single time there's a swing, there's a position they can swing into, or they can just nab a drone like that to make the approach harder, they are going to do it. A Nook could be a very good counterpick towards this hold and this strategy if gone unchecked, because it is all based on information and moving on the back of it, but there's no stopping that. As I said, everything is just metered and measured. They get 2 quick kills. They're going to look for the pressure on the swing in, but they don't quite have it. Znade tried to find the follow-on fight. It's gone. 4 versus 3 and a rocky grasp on vertical control here, with Herds, though, still... I was going to say still up there. No, they're going to get out before the track becomes problematic.
I'm reloading.
Resets has done well there. I want to give Resets a shout. It was a little bit of a gamble getting in through that window, taking the rappel, especially when the knocker died at the top of Gold Stairs. You've dropped 2 players already. If you lose Resets in your Grim at that point, you're done and dusted pretty much. But no, goes in, gets established, gets a kill that actually leads to top floor control as well. So really important play. Sometimes you've got to take a risk. And look at the operators Liquid have got left here. I said last time on Cafe they were suffering to losing those big critical operators. Blackbeard, not ideal. You kind of just send in knock in. It's a bit like an Ash really. Send them in, just, you know, see if you can get a pick. If you can, you can. But they've got Deimos, Dockerby and Grim. So they've got lots of good utility here to be able to get something going. They've got to win the gunfights though. Philippox manages to pick up the Yasmaya. Does find KZ elsewhere. Grim, and still very doable for Grim and Deimos here. 40 seconds left to go.
They've double stacked themselves on towards Beepers and Herds. He's worried about the watch from above. Just to see if anyone goes into that position, but seemingly waiting for the call on towards the Beepers side, and they've got JV92 on the swing round, and well, there's the track onto 1. If they don't know about JV92, who now? Oh, Herds able to win out his engagement. It's another 1 versus 1. The Deimos trying to get the drop here. Can't. Furia, I mean, it got closer than it had at other times. It's 2 versus 2, but the same way you cannot change a score. Tim, in the top middle of your screen, neither can Liquid. That is a round that goes away from them.
I think Liquid, they just suffered too much in the early round there. I think where they lose both of those players, we saw the knock go down, and there was a second that went along with them, and I think it was just it gave them just a little bit too much to do. Had they only lost one of those players, I think they probably win that round, because like I said, they had a ton of good utility. The Grim had used the Bees at that point, but they had multiple tracks left, Dockerby Cole, you know, and so I think they probably would have been able to get it done, but ultimately, you know, it's coulda, woulda, shoulda, isn't it? You know, it didn't happen. Furia were able to get it closed out. JV once again, not for the first time tonight, not for the first time in his career, and certainly not for the last time, just causing a nuisance of himself. Constantly there at the right place, right time, and picking up good fights. So Furia go 2-1 up on the rotation. Liquid need to be careful here. I know I said it, you know, I don't want to be kind of the naysayer, the doom bringer for Team Liquid. And I was a little bit on that first map of Cafe, and I feel like I am being a little bit here on Bank as well. But I don't feel that Furia played the basement hold properly. As I said, you know, there were a few strange positions from them, a little bit of over-aggression, and I feel like they gave Liquid a couple of chances, which, fair play to them, they took. But I just feel like if Furia play this differently, it could end up a 5-1 I could see them going through this rotation. The 2 sites they've already won, winning them again, and getting this one locked down as well if they, you know, sort of fix the play style that they had in round 1. So Liquid need to be very, very careful, and that's not a great start.
No, that's a bad start. There goes your Grim. There goes what is such a good operator, especially when you're leaning against a team that loves to do things like this and just swing out and put pressure back on. You now don't have that. So what do you have? Pocket full of flashes, and that's kind of it, right? You've got a lot of focus on towards the gadgetry. It's great, you know where you're going. But at the same sort of time on that, when it comes down to the actual swing onto engagements, which is what Furia adore to do, feeding the beast. And there's a second. They have the watch on the pipe now, and that's going to burn for at least 10 seconds, so they have a little bit of time if they want to leave, but they probably don't really want to leave. They're still aggressive here, up on the elevator.
Reload.
And at this point, you know, it's a cautious, it's a fear. It's a scared Liquid still trying to clear out open without now also, Tim. I talked about losing Grim. What about losing your Hibana on this site?
You can see the difference in what I was talking about, can't you? Round 1 to now. You know, the way that Furia are playing this, there's been no early peak. There's been no, I won't say no early aggression, because Herds has been a little bit aggressive up at the top of Blue Stairs, but he's netted 2 kills and he's played that position perfectly. And you can see the confidence that Furia are feeling here. They've given up Blue Stairs, they've given up server. Herds has gone back to locker now and said, you know what, we'll just have the smoke canisters for plant denial. You know, I'll keep them in pocket. We'll make sure that I stay alive. And Furia have switched their defence up based on what they've done. As you said, they probably recognise, they might have an idea that they've taken the Hibana down, so they know the hatches are going to be safe, so they know that they're just going to be dealing with garage, main stairs and serve a single door, and that makes it pretty easy for them. The one hatch that is open, they do manage to take advantage. Liquid fighting back, 3 versus 3. This is the fire that we want to see from them.
Okay, using smokes to cover the distance here. Maya does find JV92 as well, who decided to try and put the pressure on towards them, but as sort of knowing as they thought they almost lost that fight, but Nesk is still being forced out the door, so where's Maya going to go? They're the one with the kit. They have 20 seconds. They don't really have the time to play against all of the shoemakers, so they've got to try and just push for the kills. So Philippox is going to try and push their way out. Swings on towards Nesk. All watched in red, but resets goes down as well, and there's the crossfight. Oh, they were doing so well to dig themselves back in, but Tim, I just think the limitation of not having the Hibana, not having the hard breach, not having the coverage as well, ultimately you've still got to try and run into a rough site.
Yeah, I mean, they got maximum value out of the hatch that they did have, did Liquid. You know, I think they got 3 kills from it. They got at least 2. Absolutely, you know, great stuff. But, like you say, it's that same situation again. It's just not with operators this time, you know, where I say, yeah, you can end up in a 3 versus 3, but one team can have lost a lot more than the other, you know, depending which operators have gone off the board. And it was kind of the same situation. Liquid, yes, you got a couple of kills, yes, you leveled things up and gave yourself a chance in the round, but ultimately Furia had already done the damage because they knew that you could only push from certain points. You could only push from that hatch, garage, or from server single door. Philippox made a killer decision there. I'm going to take the fight onto the man in server so that I can actually get out there into server. I assume maybe had a Yokai drone left. Could play with that if needed to deny a plant, or has the angle to kind of fight back into site. Love that from him. But yeah, Furia again just able to find the way, have the answers. 3-1 and looking a very, very comfortable. I don't think anybody is going to want to play this Furia side in this bracket.
Now, where do we go? I think it's just always that question, right? That you pose at the end of it. You find the pressure here. Remember how this one sort of started with some aggressive swings on towards the windows. Liquid have now, unfortunately, not been able to double down on the site that they did find success on. And they've just got to try and solve the problems of the ones before they couldn't. And it's a Furia that is fired up by the need and the want to put pressure onto those teams at the top of the board. Again, a very sort of, you know, covered swingable extension here. Got all of this pressure underneath the Melusi shotgun. Everything you could possibly want to say, come and try and fight us. The only coverage there, obviously, they've got the castle barricade locked in. But will Liquid try and root out that Melusi, who's done all of her own sort of setup and isolation underneath? Or will they just try and pop into the site?
My question will be the same as always, and that is, what are Liquid going to do about Janitor? They're in there with herds and the mirror window, nitro in hand. That's going to be your plant denial. That's going to be your primary spot. And when that isn't dealt with, it's problematic. I'm looking at what they've got. Sense is going to be key here. They've got no smokes, so I would have liked maybe to see a cat out in the lineup, just smoke off the mirror window, or they've got the ash, so you know maybe Ness could go and prioritise that and deal with the glass. But yeah, they need to. No, he can't, because he's going to be taken down. Yes, they will get the underneath cleared, so again could potentially put a little bit of pressure on Janitor from there. I don't think they're going to do that, and whilst they leave herds in this position, they've got a big problem.
Well, they have been able to root out the Melusi at the cost of an Ash, and you know, you might think that's not the biggest sort of risk through, but imagine if you had that Ash to explode underneath Janitors, right? If you've got the kill on Melusi, you could use those Ash charges to root out that position that they've been playing in so aggressively before. Yeah, you can spray through and you can make spots that way, but they will just shoot right back. The Ash will make it a much trickier game to play. It opens up a lot of phantom pressure. They've got the breach on the wall itself. The ROU roll is going to offer some sort of coverage, but as the shield has been able to tuck themselves in just for a pocket chance at a plant, How confident are they feeling? You can see supporters coming around the back and being immediately knocked out. KZ got Maya at top square. There's Felipox with the trade, and you know, Liquid for a second thought they had some grounding, and Resets does just swing in, shoot in. But with 30 seconds and a kit recollected and a cover on the swing, I don't know. I mean, they just kind of swung around them there, Tim.
Yeah, it feels a lot of the time to me, when I was watching that round, it feels like Furia are kind of 20 seconds ahead all the time, maybe 10 seconds ahead. Like, there was a couple of swings that you saw, like the last one was a good example where he just swung out onto top square and got the kill there. And the Liquid players just kind of running into him. They're not ADS, they're not ready for the fight, they don't know anybody's going to swing from there, they're not prepared for anybody swinging from there, and it's like Furia already know that Liquid are going to move up from top square towards Janitor, and so they swing and they get aggressive onto it, and they just seem to be ahead of Liquid at every single point. And that 5-1 that I spoke about, you know, where I was kind of theorising, it's starting to look like a very real possibility now.
Furia, they're devoted to the idea of getting to the next series so they can beat W7M. I think is the easiest way of putting it. Wanting some revenge tour against an old rival and an old set of players that obviously have some fun recent and fairly extended history. And Liquid, for all their sort of a slower start against very tough teams, as I commented on at the start of the series, which gave them a bit of a rocky road in towards the league, into then this position now where it's just unfortunately meeting the top of the board. Once again, we had in the league a great aggressive showdown between these two teams. Unfortunately, the form is very different for those two teams right now. And Furia might be about... I made the comment at the start of this, was we might see 12 defensive rounds from Liquid and no wins. We might see 1 win. Or 12 offensive rounds even, sorry.
Yeah, it's certainly not looking good for them at the minute. This is a must-win round. Maya is going to help them towards that end. Manages to pick up the kill onto KZ. Felipox taking a lot of damage and losing his life as well. Nesk managing to get that one. A 4-2 half really wouldn't be too bad. They are now 2 versus 4 here. Diaz has been picked up and is on low health, but again, Furia just continue fighting back. Maya does manage to take down Hertz though. JV92 on the vigil in a 1v3. Liquid, surely this has to be your round.
I mean, there's a swing round from JV92 and he gets 2. Oh, it's a trade! No, it's not. Oh! The way the camera cut, I thought that was a trade for a second. But Liquid get it. But it couldn't have been closer.
I love the confidence to flip to the Bosch G in the 1v1.
The confidence to flick to the Boss G and then go for the peak as well. Obviously didn't have to immediately go for the peak. Expected the player to be coming in, which is why they did it when they did. But... oh. That was online, that could have been a trade.
It was so close. That really could have been a 1v3 from JV. The 2 that he got, you know, spinning around the corner onto the hatch and then catching the second as well. It was absolutely winnable. And he took his chance. The Bosch G, of course, having its nerfs not too long ago now. Still going to be a kill if it's a headshot, but at distance and through objects, the drop-off is a little bit more severe now. So he really was putting it all on the line for a headshot, really. There was JV. Unable to hit it, but still, Fury are going to be happy with that. A 4-2 defensive half. They come away, you know, looking very solid. It was a good round. Round 6 was a good one for Team Liquid to be winning. At least carry themselves a little bit of momentum onto the second half here. The bans are coming in. Castle and Echo being taken away from Liquid. Meanwhile, they take Grim and Ying, which I think is a great banning pair to take away from Fury. There's a lot lot of power that they could use there. But Deimos, keep your eye on KZ. They bring it, they're just bringing everything. Lion, Capito, Deimos. It's going to be ugly. Ace charges. They're going to try and get them onto that mirror window that I've spoken about, looking into Janitor. Try and get that area cleared out. But, KZ switches away, actually. That's quite interesting. I would have expected the Deimos to be playing in underneath, in and around archives, lockers, looking for that vertical opportunity up into sight. But no, chooses at the last minute to move away and to bring those Rotero drones.
Yeah, they're just to angle to try and keep the pressure up. There's a lot to slow it down in the sort of stead of it. Obviously, I'm kind of curious whether Tubarão is going to really throw themselves in. Do they expect a long drawn-out play on the breach? There's nothing to immediately play against it unless the Kaid is sort of tricking, but it's not the most comfortable trick to play in. So maybe it's just going to be a Janitor's wall sort of locked down and make that impenetrable and make that a really tricky backline. Use the Clash to offer the support here and keep that wall going alongside Ask. I mean, you've built a lot in that case behind the mirror window, and you did say it before, how do you solve a problem like Janitor's? It's going to be something that will add on towards that. Seems like Furia, they're just getting some of this early work done. Bring the coverage on towards that. I'm going to throw the Selma behind it. Are they going to do what I expected and try and get rid of it? There's the freeze. There'll be a claw to follow up. I don't know.
Impact nade won't be possible, really, as Clash doesn't have the angle from playing outside of Janitor. So, yep, Janitor has been pretty effectively dealt with by Furia there. Nice big breach in it, so it's going to be very difficult for anybody to play inside of. There goes the air jab, so now nobody can move in. Can be taken out because there is the mirror window looking on in there. And this is the problem they've got, the secondary angle coming in towards Janitor. They have to keep themselves really tight in here, but look at the space that having Janitor cleared out gives them. The plant goes down, they now play on the windows, and we know how difficult this is to win once that diffuser is down. Now that you can't really, if it'll just pushing the Clash into the air jab as well. Now that you effectively can't go out of the windows because of the ADS in, you have to wait until you hit the ground to ADS. It's a really difficult retake. Felipox finishes it off, and it's a great attack from Furia. 5-2.
It was just brilliantly put together. Really, they showed their sharpness. They showed where they needed to pull the pressure on towards it. They did everything to sort of cover the utility. They did everything to sort of make them have to work on their defense. And, you know, they couldn't quite net the results that they wanted. Instead, we'll go down towards basement, play against the hatches. Again, they've got the Tubarão, they've got the Kaid. This one is obviously a lot more obvious in how they can play against it, but I was wrong before, so it might not be the obvious route that they want to take. I think it's that sad sort of comment that we made at the start of the series where we said, you know, there can be these huge players, but some games they'll be brilliant and some games they won't be. Unfortunately, Nesk and Diaz are two of those players right now. They've just struggled to get in towards Bank. We know how defining they can be on their games. This just hasn't been their game.
It comes back to what I said, doesn't it? You know, this is the problem for Liquid. They have amazingly talented players. Consistency is just an issue for a number of them. And it creates such a roller coaster ride for them as to, you know, what performance you're going to get out of Liquid. And they are quite frankly unplayable some days. And then others, they just, as you quite rightly said, struggle to get themselves into it. And that's the reality for Nesk and DS at the minute on Bank. And like I said, it doesn't surprise me on a map like Bank that Liquid just don't play. You know, a very tough choice for them. You know, Fresh was saying to me that, you know, the other option really was Lair. With the way the bans went, it would have been Lair or Bank for Team Liquid, but ultimately Furia are pretty good on Lair. But the problem is, Furia are pretty good everywhere.
So the Nook of Herds want to try and just get themselves up directly into the fight and the fray. There's at least some reveal, but there's nobody to catch yet as the drones roll on past. Resets might be the first victim here.
Frag out.
Oh, they'll hear the beepers. They know there's somebody either side, and gives a bit of the game away, but it's Nest that goes down to KZ. There's JV, and it's just like they're being executed. surrounded by a Nook, and the Nook drew them in, and the others locked them out. Ask does fight the way up, and they were able to get rid of the Deimos at the same time, but now it's a, ooh, I was gonna say a 2 versus 3, it's a 1 versus 3, and they're inside the building, they're inside the floor. They're within 1 round of getting this series put to bed, Tim.
The call was coming from inside the house, they already had the problem. Elevator had been dropped. JV manages to get the kill. Furia just looking like a different beast, essentially. I know we've said that already, but it is just the reality. Put them onto defense, put them onto attack, it just doesn't matter. They look absolutely phenomenal tonight. I'm running out of superlatives to use to describe them realistically. You know, Liquid are struggling a bit. Don't get me wrong, yep, there are players who are struggling to get themselves into the game, but I think largely it's just because Furia are denying them that space, they're denying them that opportunity. They're winning every gunfight. You know, every time Liquid run around a corner, there's somebody ADS looking at them. It must feel like they're coming out of the walls.
At this point, Liquid, how much of this is just running this into its inevitable end here? How much of this has just been the pressures of today, and how much of this is, God, do you remember how good Furia are at LAN? Yeah, I remember. I saw it every single time. They are just a different beast, a different animal when they get to this sort of situation, and, you know, it always reminds you of the class of this roster, and it's a strange thing to say based on the accolades this roster has, but when they fall a little bit and you go, okay, you know, they're maybe struggling against them and they did this, and then they get to this stage and are like, oh no, yeah, this is why they are one of the best teams that has touched the game. Anyway.
Basement attack coming up from Furia. Let's see how good they are on another basement attack. I think I'm going to hedge my bets and say very good. Going to open up the top of the line onto the top of blue stairs so that there can't be any aggression up there. By Ask, who is going to be playing on the smoke. We saw the damage that Herds was able to do from that position himself. Hatches be 45 seconds in and hatches are already being opened. Furia really are not messing about here. They want an early night. They want this done and dusted 7-2. Imagine a world where coming into this I had said, I mean, I don't think you'd probably ever really question a possibility for Furia because we know how good they are. But coming in saying Liquid we're going to lose 14-2, I don't think I'd have bought it.
No, and you know, it's just it's the nature of the beast as well. You think about how close some of these rounds could have been, but only really the ones that Furia didn't win, right? It's some early, all the way back at the start of Cafe. For a second, I thought they were just going to group hot drop the hatch there. But it's the play here against the Tiburao.
Yeah, you just can't really put it past Furia at the minute, can you? It's any opportunity for aggression they seem to be taking. You know, they're just willing to go in and get those fights, but they are remaining structured with it. You know, and being cautious at the same time. They don't want to give anything away for free. 58 seconds left to go. Still working on the hatches here, so a little bit slower than last time for Furia. They haven't got themselves into a position to be putting a diffuser down or anything just yet. They do have the sense gadgets, of course, remaining. 40 seconds left, though, to make something work, and it is still 5 versus 5.
They did that breach on the wall a little bit high. I guess they're not just going to try and duck their way through. Instead, make it a hop and use it for angles later. Going to deploy the fuse, get rid of anything on the other side. But to be honest, at this point, they have more than enough utility because they also have, you know, the chance for all these canisters. There's the first kill on KZ is dropped. The hatch itself is going to turn into the drop, but the RAU just didn't offer enough coverage. A shotgun waiting to catch anybody who dares find the fight, but they did get a bit of damage done to us. There's the pickup, there's the swing round, but it's a 4 versus 1 at this point, and Herds is separated by fire. Liquid, oh, it won't be 14-2, but it might still be 14-3, and that's the problem, right?
Yeah, the problem is it feels like it's delaying the inevitable. It was a good round from Liquid. Let's, look at the positive. They were very, very solid inside of sight. Furia never really got them moving, even when they got the hatches opened. And Furia were far too slow about getting those hatches open. I suppose it's, always going to be part of the problem of playing with the Maverick to do that job. But yeah, it was like only 40, 35 seconds left by the time the hatches were open. And the thing is, they started it off really quickly. Actually commented at the beginning of the round saying 40 seconds in, we're getting a hatch open, they're not messing about here. And then they just seemed to take an inordinate amount of time doing not very much. And that gave Liquid the opportunity, and they were more than happy to take it. They got sight locked down well, had the angles. I love the fight up onto the hatch. It's the kind of aggression that Liquid do need to play with now. The 6-2 down at that point. What have you got to lose? You've got to just throw it all at the wall and see what sticks. So where normally, you might try to avoid those uphill battles through a hatch, because often the height advantage will win that one out. It didn't in that case, and Liquid did really well to make sure that they kept themselves in that round and that they were well in the driving seat and in command. So good one from them. 6-3 we find ourselves now. The big problem facing Liquid is they have to go for a full rotation still. Even on top of that round, they still need to get every defensive site won back to back just to get to overtime. It's a big ask.
Deploying ADS.
At this point as well, with the limitations of, the ace versus sort of out combination there, you can play yourself against the castle, you can slow things down, and with the echo drone, the read of information, but it's just limiting more and more information, right? The control of the map is something that they don't want to find, but they want to be able to just suddenly hit you. They want you to think you know where you're looking, Furia, and then, oh no, they're behind you, as we saw with the Nook round, as we saw with the other round that they were successful on. Swapping! And just the immediate sort of drop down on towards the hatches. Still, we have time now to get things worded out. You've got Philippox on the Monty, that the most common sort of, shield dependent team. Not to say that other teams are dependent on the shield, but we've seen a lot of shield teams in the current meta. And we know Philippox is very good, Monty, so can he try and draw some of that focus I was talking about before, just lure the play in against the front of him, which seems like he might want to just push up Spiral here alongside some support, draw them away from the idea of a breach on top square, and then probably also then hit that.
I don't know if the drone just spotted out the player in behind the desk. I think the pings will say that they did, so Furia will be aware of that position. Need to make sure that they just don't go running headlong in if they try to move up these spiral stairs. Air jab there is going to prevent any aggression coming down those stairs at least, whilst Furia continue to prod and poke and look around. Yeah, why not? And look around for that first opening kill, get that entry. They've been doing much better on the entry this time. Herds is actually 4-0 on the entry so far in this game.
Well, shield versus shield, and they're just calling out information to each other, but KZ gets Nesk, so that makes the swing round to support a bit tougher, and not entirely sure what the blind was there. Ask got in that position for that fight and couldn't get it. Fought in. Diaz and resets all that is left. Diaz does find Herds in the meantime, but there's KZ quick with the trade. As I said, they love to strike and surprise, and Furia, I think, surprised nobody with that result. An absolutely brilliant day at the LAN office for Furia.